Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Ernest Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our video. The final week of the USFL season in 2023 is here, and there are so many stakes on the line. Every single team is still in play to make the USFL playoffs. That is correct. It is unbelievable. But Birmingham is the only team that has punched their ticket. They are already in the playoffs no matter what, even if they lose this week. But every single team, if they win and some other things happen, can still get in. So I'm going to deep dive into these games and see which teams I think will win these week's games and make the 2023 USFL playoffs. Now, the first game on deck is the Pittsburgh Maulers and the New Jersey Generals, and both of these teams are 3-6. This game is in Canton, Ohio, so it's not going to really benefit either team with the home crowd. But whoever wins this game is in the playoffs at 4-6. I know that's not a great record, but the North Division has been fairly weak all season long. So again, whoever wins this game will make the playoffs. And you have the Maulers. Last week they beat the Michigan Panthers 19-7 to keep their hopes alive of making the playoffs. And Troy Williams, he had a solid game. He was 14-24 for 166 yards, a touchdown, and 5 carries for 7 yards. Troy Williams has been a fairly inconsistent quarterback. He has thrown some picks in games. He's even had some fumbles. But when he takes care of the football, it makes Pittsburgh's offense much better. They only are at 3-6 this season, so they've had a lot of struggles on the offensive end, but all it takes is one more win, and you're in the playoffs, so I'm sure Troy Williams is going to give it everything he's got. Madre London had 12 carries, 51 yards last week, and Isaiah Henney had 5 receptions for 67 yards. The Pittsburgh Maulers receiving core has been solid this season, and Pittsburgh defense has shown up to play in some games. Yeah, they've struggled at times, like every other team in the USFL. That's been the common theme for most of these teams, just inconsistencies, but Pittsburgh is a solid team when they play like it. In New Jersey, they're 3-6 as well, and last week they beat the Philadelphia Stars 37-33 in a thriller. That was a great game. They beat the Stars and kept their hopes alive of making the playoffs as well. And DeAndre Johnson, he returned off of his injury. He was 15-20 for 213 yards, and he had 7 carries for 29 yards. He is a guy also like Troy Williams who is solid but can be a bit turnover prone. When he takes care of the football, New Jersey's offense runs much smoother. Darius Victor had 11 carries for 51 yards, and he had a reception for 12 yards and a passing touchdown on one of the most epic plays of the entire USFL season. Darius Victor got flipped over in midair, but he shuffled the pass forward into the end zone. That was a crazy play. And Darrell Stewart Jr. had 3 receptions for 109 yards. This is an interesting game. I could really see this game going either way. Both teams can make the playoffs with a win. Both teams are going to give everything they've got. I think both defenses are going to play really hard, but whichever offense plays more mistake-free and has a solid game overall with no turnovers and can just get the ball in the end zone more often, I think will have a great chance to win. There's not going to be a home crowd, so again, there's not going to be a benefit for either team there. I'm actually going to go with the New Jersey Generals to beat the Pittsburgh Maulers 21-17 for the Generals to be to 4-6 and make the USFL playoffs, and the Pittsburgh Maulers to fall short. It should be a great game, but I feel like New Jersey will have just a bit more on the offensive end with DeAndre Johnson, and their defense will find a way to get a stop at the end. On to our next game, where we have the Birmingham Stallions playing on the road at the Memphis Showboats. This is a really tough game for the Birmingham Stallions because it's in Memphis, and Memphis has a great home crowd because they show out for their Showboats. And the Birmingham Stallions are already in the playoffs. They don't have to win this game to get in, so it could be a factor where maybe they lax up a bit because they know they're already in and they don't have to play as hard. But I don't think Skip Holtz is going to let that happen. He's a coach that wants his team to play hard every given week, even when there are no stakes on the line. And last week they beat the Houston Gamblers 38-15, so they floored the Gamblers to punch their ticket to the playoffs. Alex Magoo was 13-21 for 208 yards and 2 touchdowns and a pick, and had 9 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown. He has been playing so much better as the season's gone along. Earlier on in the year, he had some fumbles and he was throwing some picks, but as the season has progressed, he has gotten so much better at not turning it over, and he is looking more and more like Jamar Smith in every passing week, and Skip Holtz is trusting him to do more in the offense because of the fact that he has given Skip Holtz the confidence that he's not going to make mistakes, and he's been doing a great job. CJ Marable had 12 carries for 32 yards and a touchdown, and 3 receptions for 37 yards. He's a good dual threat running back, kind of like Wesley Hills, where he can catch the ball out of the backfield and he can run up the middle. He's a solid running back. And Jay Sternberger, a tight end that again should be in the NFL. He had 3 receptions for 58 yards and a touchdown. The Birmingham Stallions are a really solid team. They have a great defense with Shark Dog Scooby right at linebacker, and their offense is solid on the ground and through the air. And Skip Holtz is a really solid coach that gets his team ready every given week. As long as Birmingham is focused in this game and will play hard despite the fact that they've already punched their ticket to the playoffs, they'll have a great chance to win. But the Memphis Showboats, they've got a lot on the line. They have to win, and they need a New Orleans Breakers loss. So a win here will not be enough for Memphis to get in. They need New Orleans to lose as well. And last week they lost to New Orleans 31-3. That was a terrible performance, and it was at the Memphis Showboats as well. It was an awful performance, but there was a rain delay. There was some lightning in the area, and Memphis just could never get back on track after that. Cole Kelly was 23 of 41 for 224 yards and 3 picks and 3 carries for 18 yards. We have not had many quarterbacks throw 3 picks in a game in the USFL this season. That was a horrible performance by Cole Kelly, but again, maybe the rain delay had something to do with it, and if they play hard in this game, maybe the Showboats can row their way to the playoffs. Juwan Washington had 11 carries, 40 yards, 6 for 7 for 34 yards, and Derek Dillon at 5 receptions for 51 yards. It's really tough to gauge the Memphis Showboats on their performance last week because before last week, they had won their last 5 games. They started the season 0-3, then they won their last 5 games until last week when they lost to the New Orleans Breakers, and it potentially had something to do with the rain delay. And Memphis, if they win, they could make the playoffs if New Orleans loses. So I think Memphis is going to give it everything they've got, but I just trust Birmingham more. They've been the more consistent team, and I still believe that Skip Holtz is going to get his team ready to play, even though they really don't have much to play for here besides still building momentum for the playoffs. I think Memphis is going to play hard, and their home crowd's going to try, but I'm going to go with the Birmingham Stallions to beat the Memphis Showboats 28-14 to eliminate the Showboats, and for Birmingham to move to 8-2 and be primed and ready for the playoffs this year. And the next game, we have the New Orleans Breakers at 6-3 going on the road to the Houston Gamblers. This game is in Memphis, so there's not going to be really a home crowd for Houston, but the Gamblers are 5-4, and Houston needs to win, and they need Memphis to lose. And if New Orleans loses this game, they are out as well, but if New Orleans wins, they are in. So both teams have a lot of stakes here. In New Orleans last week, the way that they played is giving you the confidence that they should show up to play here because they beat the Memphis Showboats 31-3. That was a fantastic performance. McLeod Bethel Thompson, he was only 9 of 16 for 88 yards and a touchdown. He had 4 carries for 4 yards. How many teams win games 31-3 when your quarterback only throws for 88 yards? This isn't the 1980s anymore. That is insane right there. But the reason New Orleans won is because they took advantage of those turnovers by Memphis, and they had great field position for most of the game. Wesley Hills at 18 carries for 46 yards and a reception for 10 yards. He's one of the best running backs in the USFL with his dual nature ability. And Lee Morris at 3 receptions for 44 yards. New Orleans floored Memphis last week, and if they play with the same intensity this week, then they'll have a great chance to beat the Gamblers. But Houston's not going to give up because they know that they can get in the playoffs as well if they win and Memphis loses. And Kenji Bahar, in their loss last week to the Birmingham Stallions 38-15, he was 20 of 27 for 149 yards and a pick, and he had 5 carries for 15 yards. He didn't have an awful performance besides that pick, and he has been a solid quarterback for most of the season when he's been able to play, but unfortunately they were no match for Birmingham. Mark Thompson tried as well. He had 17 carries for 56 yards, and he had 3 receptions for 15 yards, but even he didn't have the type of performance that he normally has. He usually rushes for more yards, but Birmingham did a great job on the defensive end, and Justin Hall had 6 receptions for 45 yards. I think this is going to be a great game, and New Orleans has been a team that's been a bit inconsistent. They've had some dud performances, but they've kind of turned it around the last couple weeks. They played great against Memphis, which is very inspiring to be able to believe that they can make the playoffs. In Houston, they've been up and down as well, and I think that even though they don't have a home crowd, they're going to give it everything that they've got. But I'm going to go with the New Orleans Breakers to beat the Houston Gamblers 24-21 to punch their ticket to the USFL Playoffs, and unfortunately for the Houston Gamblers to fall short and miss the playoffs as well, just like the Memphis Showboats. Now on to the last game of the Week 10 USFL slate. You've got the Philadelphia Stars, who are at 4-5. They're traveling on the road to the Michigan Panthers, who are at 3-6, and this game's in Detroit, Michigan, so Michigan will have a home crowd at Ford Field. This is a really interesting game because the Stars, they could have already been in the playoffs. If they had to beat the New Jersey Generals last week, they would have been 5-4, and they would have already been in the USFL playoffs like the Birmingham Stallions. But now they've left the door open for bad things to happen, and for them to possibly miss the playoffs if they lose this game. And they played well against New Jersey last week, but their defense just could not stop the Generals. They lost 37-33, and Case Cookus, he was 25-39 for 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 7 carries for 59 yards. In most games in the USFL, if your quarterback throws for 3 touchdowns and no picks and that many yards, you're winning the game. But again, New Jersey did such a good job in last week's game to stay alive for the playoffs themselves. And Philadelphia, they're going to have to play another great game like they did last week if they want to win. Dexter Williams, a 9 carry for 39 yards, 3 receptions for 45 yards. And Corey Coleman, who is a guy that I think should be in the NFL as well, he had 9 receptions for 98 yards and a touchdown. The Stars, I think they're better than the 4-5 record that they are, but unfortunately for them, they've had a lot of close losses, and their offensive line has not protected Case Cookus that well. Case Cookus took a beating against the New Jersey Generals last week, but he just kept getting back on his feet and playing hard, and he did a great job. He was mistake-free, and if he plays this well again, they'll have a great chance to beat Michigan. But this game is, again, at Michigan. I think the Panthers are going to try because they know if they win that they are in as well, and it will be the ultimate spoiler to prevent the Stars from getting back to the playoffs when they made it last year. Josh Love, he was 19 of 33 for 233 yards, a touchdown, and 4 picks, and he had 3 carries for 16 yards. So I said we don't see 3 picks that often in the USFL with Cole Kelly throwing 3 for the Memphis Showboats, but Josh Love had 4 picks, and they still only lost 19-7. So the Pittsburgh Marauders didn't even do that well last week in the fact that they only beat Michigan 19-7 despite Josh Love having 4 picks. He's been a very inconsistent quarterback, but when he does not throw interceptions, he can be solid, but that was an awful performance last week. Stevie Scott, the third, 9 carries for 25 yards, and A.J. Richardson at 5 receptions for 99 yards. Michigan has some decent offensive players, and their defense isn't the worst either because of the fact that they've held a lot of teams to a few amount of points, but unfortunately for Michigan, their offense just has not been very reliable. Philadelphia is a better offense, and unless Michigan can rock Case Cookus and force him to make mistakes, it's going to be very difficult for them to win. I feel like Michigan's going to play hard because they know they're still alive for the playoffs, but I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Stars to beat the Michigan Panthers 21-14 for the Stars move to 5-5 and them making the USFL Playoffs, and the Michigan Panthers to fall to 3-7, unfortunately missed the playoffs. Now, the 2023 regular season of the USFL will be wrapped up after this week, but it is insane that you have a league where every single team is still alive for the playoffs. And whether that means that these teams are any good or not, it doesn't matter. At least we're going to have really good football coming up this week where we're not going to be sure who's going to make the playoffs, and it should be a lot of fun. But I'm going with the New Jersey Generals, the Birmingham Stallions, the New Orleans Breakers, and the Philadelphia Stars to all win their games this week, and 3 of those teams to punch their tickets to the playoffs. And what would be ironic is if every single game goes the way that I've predicted, then all 4 teams that will be in this year's playoff will be the same 4 teams that were in the 2022 USFL playoffs. Again, it should be very interesting for sure, and we'll know after this week who makes the playoffs, and we'll definitely be previewing those games as well once we know who the opponents will be. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about the Week 10 games of the USFL regular season and how you feel that every single team is still alive for the playoffs and which teams you feel will punch their ticket this week and make the playoffs. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I will see you next time.